Hi everyone, Emma here. This is an update to this previous bracelet design, and the reason I wanted to do an update was I got a message from Kate McGuire 5 days ago, and she mentions that she really enjoys this design, but that she was having problems lining things up. And I'm not quite sure what she meant about lining up, but I went back and looked at the video and I realized a lot of times I was down in the lower part of the camera, and because I do it all the time, sometimes I forget that I need to slow down and really you know just show you exactly what's happening and what can go wrong if you don't do it a certain way. So this design is kind of particular that way, and I'll tell you, just to let you know, anybody out there as well as Kate, don't feel bad that you had issues with it, because when I did my first one, which was about 3 years ago, when I did it, I did not understand the process of adding the bicones. Now this one's hard to see, but this was my first one 3 years ago. So let's take a look at this one. It might be easier to show you. But I didn't understand that, like, attaching your bicone with your seed bead and then the next bicone, that you're continuously going in a circle and you're going backwards, so that you're incorporating the previous bead into the next set, and then when you get to your final two, they're separated, so you have to attach those two with a seed bead. So anyway, I'm going to go through that one more time, and I'm going to try and do this nice and slow and explain everything I'm doing, and maybe add a bit of information about the pitfalls. Like, you can see even with this, so this one, you would think I have a handle on this design, but you can see the beads are kind of moving around and they're not perfectly centered. Let me see if I can find one. Yeah, so there's a bit of a gap on this one. So we'll talk about those things. So let's get going. So this will be a quick video, and I will link the previous video with it so that you can follow from the beginning of the bracelet to the end. And when I do videos, I don't do an actual full bracelet. I usually have pieces ready to go to show you the examples. So yeah, in case you're wondering if you're looking for a video that shows the very beginning to the end, because when it comes down to it, these bracelets take a couple hours to complete. So there you go. So what we're doing is we're going to add the last, and let me adjust the camera so we don't have any camera issues. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask again. So let me just move this here. So this one here, so this was the one I started in the video, and I showed you how to add the button. So I had like maybe a few flowers on, and then I added the button, and then that was the end of the video. I did explain for the closure, you do need to add some seed beads. Now on this one, I added 30 seed beads, and it's actually too big. So it would still hold your bracelet on, but you could see how big it is. So we're going to add 25 at the end of the other one. So, and here's the other big difference. So this design is done with 4mm fire polish, and a 4mm fire polish is longer than a 4mm pearl. So the design I was showing in the video was with the 4mm pearl, because here's the thing, you need a lot of these fire polish and they're a little bit expensive. So and sometimes it's not about the expense, but it's hard to get all the colors to match. So like, if you order a strand or two from a store, hoping they have that color to match is hard. So I thought I'd try it with the 4mm pearls, And this works really well. Now, when I put them side to side, the bracelets, I did notice that it was slightly larger from end to end here. So just make sure you take a look at your measurements for your wrist. So let's get started so we can take a look at this, make this a quick little video. So when you're, like I said, I wasn't sure what she meant by lining up. I was wondering if she meant lining them up this way. So I'll just discuss that for a second. So let's take a look at the back. When you go to attach your next set of pearls, you're going to bring your thread up to the end bead. Now you say, well, what's the end bead? If you're starting from the first one, any one can be the end bead. But once you put that as your end bead, then you're always going to have to go equally across to the next one. So I hope that makes sense. So that if you look at where my thread is, I'm getting ready to add another component here. So I'm on my end bead. And you know it's an end bead because your bracelet's all going in a line like that. So if that was the you know, what Kate was asking about the lining up. But I kind of think that maybe she's talking about lining up these bicones. And that's a little more difficult. So here's the other thing. When you're adding your next component, you got to remember that this bead counts. Let me enlarge this. This bead here counts as part of your component. So we usually use 8 pearls for each component, but since, let's do it this way, and we'll add the fourth one on this side here. Let's get this guy in here. They're very bouncy. Pearls are hard to poke on the needles because of the finish on the ends. So, okay, so that's our final one. So we have 4 there, 3 there, and 1 there. So that makes 4 and 4 to give us 8. So all we do is you look at the side that your thread's coming out of. So it's coming out of this side. So we want to go into this side, and that creates the next loop. So super simple. Like that. Pull everything through, and now you're set to go. So now I am going to go through everything one more time and then come out here. I tried to come away from this bead here just because it's hard to get in there with your needle when you're adding your bicones. So if we do it kind of upside down, you can see it a little better, but normally I just work this way. So let me just do it this way so you can see. So now I'm just going to go through everything one more time. Through these guys. Don't worry if it's a bit loose, because we're going to tighten it once we get past that combined bead. So I hope everybody's doing well. We're, spring's starting to show up, but it's really cold outside and windy, and we're right on the ocean, so it makes it even colder. So I'm just going to pull that nice and tight, and I'm coming out of this one. I'm going to go into the next one just to get away from that bead. And be careful when you're going through, when you're using your pearls. The needles are really sharp, and I find as you're trying to get through here, and this one's must be getting stuck on the finish. Okay, your needle will scratch up the finish on your pearl, and that's so upsetting. So I'm just going to count, make sure we have 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so this part here might have been confusing too, and I apologize for that as well. Part of it was I hadn't done it in 3 years, and Sometimes it's confusing. So I'm going to take my 4mm bicones. I'll put the supplies in the description. You're going to take one bicone and one 11/0 seed bead and one bicone. That's going to start your first one. After that, we'll only add one bicone and one 11/0. So there you go. Okay. So like I said, you're going to go backwards all the time. So there's your 2 bicones, and you're coming out of this thread here. We're going to go to the other side of the hole. And at this point, you can either come out here or you can go through your next pearl, because we are going to add a bicone at that section. So go like this. And I like to get them sitting up in the middle. If you flip it over this way, the thread is out a bit. So then when you go to tighten it, there's a lot of loose thread. So you want it nice and snug for this to sit properly. Okay, so now your thread's coming out of this side. We're going to add one bicone and one 11/0. Just like that. Then, like we did here on the past one, we're going to go backwards through the pearl, but we want to attach our bicone. So we're going to go through the bicone. Let me just bring that. Oops. Let's try that again. Everything's off the needle. Okay. So we want to go through the bicone, and you want to go through this pearl that we just came out of, but from the other side. So you go through those, and that will connect that. And there's your third. And like I said, bring it to the middle. So now we need to go through the next pearl. So we could have gone through both pearls at the same time, but whatever makes more sense to you, do it that way. You don't want to confuse yourself. And again, just to say it again, it is confusing doing this. So I can remember taking it apart and doing it again. So there you go, bicone 11/0. We're coming out of this side of the pearl. We're going to go through the bicone of the pearl, and if we can, we'll go through the next pearl to set it up for the next one. So just the bicone, just the pearl. It is finicky trying to get through stuff, and then through the next pearl, like that. You see how it's going to start to come together. So let's pick up a bicone, an 11/0. We're going to go through the last, and I know it's hard to see this dark blue, the last bicone, the pearl, and then the next pearl, like that. Get in here, like that. Okay. We're going to pick up a bicone, an 11/0, go through, so you're coming out of this pearl that doesn't have anything on it yet. Go through the bicone. Okay, and we'll do it separately, separate steps like that. Then go through the next pearl, like that. And then the following pearl, so we can add our next bicone. That. And at this point, kind of jiggle them in place and pull. your thread tight. Pick up a bicone and 11/0. Coming out of here, we want to go through this bicone. Through the 2 pearls. That. Pull tight. Pick up the last bicone. Pick up an 11/0. Go through the bicone that we just added. Go through the first pearl and let's do it in 2 steps because it does get a bit finicky here. So we'll go through the first pearl, right there. Okay, we're going to go through the next pearl. That's that combined pearl. Okay, so as you can see, first of all, we have all 8 of our bicones on there. But if you count, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 11/0s. So we need an 8th one right here. As well as if you look, it's open. It's not connected to each other. But all the others are. They're all connected to each other. So you're going to go up. And this would have been the first bicone that we added. So we're coming out of that combined pearl. And we're going to go up. Like that. We're going to add an 11/0 seed bead. The one we're missing. We're going to go down the one we added just before. Go down that bicone. Let me see, I think that that seed bead popped off. Oh no, it's right there. Sometimes it comes off your needle. Okay, so you're coming out of that bicone. You're going to go back through this combined pearl, and that will complete the connection like that. Okay, so the next step we want to do, I'm looking at my thread. I don't know if we have enough thread. We will try it. So we're going to go up the next bicone again, like that. We want to position ourselves up here because, see, these are not closed up the way we need them. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through all the 11/0s together. And I go past the first one that we started. Sometimes I go through twice if I feel it's not snug enough. So that would be, we already went through this one, so we'll go through it again. Like I said, go past it. Let me bring my thread out here. Let me just draw this down a bit. We might have enough, and then we'll add some thread, and I'll show you how to do that. Let's grab that. Okay, so let's show you it's all kind of open, and you pull your thread in the direction that the thread's going, and you see how it closes it up. So that's what you want. Now, like I said, I like it closed up a little more, so I go sometimes twice around and then pull as tight as you can get everything without taking your thread off your needle. Okay, here is a tip coming up. So now we've got these somewhat tightened where we want them. Very important to go back down a bicone. So my thread's coming out of this seed bead, here. So let's go through this bicone here. Pull it tight. You see how this, I would consider that perfectly tight where you want it. Then go through the purl. So you're basically anchoring your thread so that the tension around those beads, so you see how it opened up again, but once we get through here, it will tighten again. And we need to be up top anyway, so we're going to tighten this nicely the way we want it. So you see how nice and tight that is. Go back up the adjacent bicone. Then go through a seed bead. I'm going to go through 2 just to stay away from that spot. But as long as you go through 1, you're good. So now you see how it's not coming apart anymore. We've added that little anchor. You can still snug it up. Okay, the final step is adding this little accent bead. And these are 3mm druks that I'm adding. So I'm coming out of this 11-0 and adding my 3mm druk. So I'm just going to take my thread and kind of eyeball. Okay, so I want to go through this 11-0 here. You don't have to do it in the opposite direction. You can do it exactly the 2 middle beads, and just as long as you pass through both sides of the bead. So now I'm on the other side of that 11-0. I'm going to go back through the 3mm druk, and we'll take a look and see where we put our thread. So our thread was coming out of this side of this 11-0. We're going to go on the other side, and that just anchors it as well. So I'm going to go through a few beads, and then we are going to take this down and tie it off. And it's going to be a sketch. There's not a lot of thread here. Let me make sure that thread is on there. Okay, so let me go through the bicone that's right next to it, like that. I'm going to go through 1 purl, and I'm going to tie a knot in here. So I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to find a thread bridge here that's going between the 2 4mm purls. You can grab 1 thread or all the threads that are there, whatever. It's not there. So grab that thread bridge. I'm going to take my thread and wrap it around twice like that. Pull it really close to that thread bridge, and then hold it with your thumb, push your needle through, and then make sure it's nice and tight, that knot. And then I'm just going to go through a few beads and cut my thread. I'm going to go through 2. I might pull it through that middle combined one because it's got a lot of thread in it, so it's nice that it'll snug up the thread and it won't kind of unravel. We'll cut that off and we'll get going on the final. So if you have your own way of adding thread, feel free to use that. But I'll just show you what I do. And you know, everybody has their own kind of technique for this kind of stuff. Actually, you know what? I might have a thread here that's long enough. I think this is. I always hesitate with using a pre-cut piece, especially when I do the videos. It's so bad. You end up not having enough thread. It's like, oh, how annoying is this? So I'm just gonna thread this. So I hope this helps. Thank you so much, Kate, for asking the question. I read all the comments, so Now, if you've commented on an old video and you haven't gotten a response from me, sometimes I get the notifications, most of the times I don't, and I don't go back. Like I have 950 videos. This video will be 951. So there's no way I can go back and read and check if somebody's commented on a video. So just in case you're wondering, and I'll give you a hint, if you have a question that you really want an answer to, but it's on an old video, just go back to the latest video and comment and say, I was looking at your such and such video and I had a question. Just pose the question. I'll get back to you. So, okay, so I'm going to go back a bit and thread and knot. So you don't have to go too far back. And here's the thing with a closure too. It's a good idea to add a separate thread. If it breaks, then it's just the closure that you lose the beads from. But if you were using, say you did, 4 or 5 components and then the closure, and then something breaks on the closure, you could potentially lose the whole bracelet. So that's why I mention it. So let's go through this one. And again, this is all like, up to you. I like to crisscross it, but that might be a bad idea either. I'm noticing these are tighter. So I'm going to go through. So I'm going to bring my thread all the way. Now, one of the tricks that Stephanie from Bronze Pony shows is putting a stop bead on your thread that you're adding. So adding where you can go to like enough, maybe 6 centimeters, so you can weave that part through as well. But what I end up doing is I just go through, maybe leave this amount, and hang on to it with my finger as I'm doing the knots and weaving through. So I'm going to go through, and I do follow the bead path. So that's another kind of hint. So that's in there. So the bead path, if you went across this way, now you got to go the other way and up. So I'm going to go through these beads. Yeah, pearls are, because they have finish all the way to the holes and sometimes in the holes, they're a little hard to get through. And I'm using a big needle, so there. And that's, like I said, careful not to scratch your beads. Okay, so I'm going to get past this one and then we'll put our first knot. But basically what that does is this area here is all hidden. Now, if you're really kind of confident, you can go ahead and start pulling this through like this, right to the end. You can see the thread is coming up to that bead there. Pull through, pull through, pull through, there. It's sticking out a tiny bit, but I would leave it at that. Okay, so let's go through this guy. Yeah, so the middle one gets sticky because we go through that one more than the other beads. So go through one more. We'll start to add some knots here. So we're going to add a knot right here. So go ahead, put your needle between the 2 beads, kind of feel for the thread bridge. So I managed to get it. Then take my loose thread, wrap it around twice, pull it down, put my finger there. Sometimes the loop will jump and go over a bead, so that's why I do that with the finger. And pull it tight. Now go to the next 2 beads. And you can pull it tight and that will get that knot tight as well. So we'll go through this one. That one went through easy. There. We're going to go through one of these and then I'll add another knot. So Usually if you look at a lot of beaders, that's what they do. They add 2 knots when they're adding thread. So let's do that again. Bring your needle up through a thread bridge and take your thread that's on your needle, wrap it around twice, pull it down close to the thread bridge, push your needle through, and my thread got tangled in the bracelet. Let's just untangle that. Okay. Continue to pull your thread through and pull it tight, and the knot goes down. Now we are ready. Go through the next 2 beads. There. And now we're ready to add our seed beads. Let me check this, why this is sticking funny. Okay. So I'm thinking about this. These are 11-0 Miyuki. They're like rounds. I kind of like to use a Toho that's more tubular and big. So I think I'm just going to grab it here. Of course, I can't find the silver Tohos. These are that's interesting. I didn't realize I didn't have any silver Tohos. Okay, we have some options here. I don't know. Yeah, I don't care for those. And these are Delicas. Oh no, Toho silver lined. But they look a little bright for this design, so maybe I should just stick with the other. Okay, so we may have to add more than 25. That's why I'm kind of hesitating. So you're going to be coming out of this. So this would have been your combined bead. You want to be into the next one. So you're going to go ahead and pick up 25, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, 10. So when I'm counting for something like this, I will count, say, tens and bring it down, and that way I kind of know how many I've counted already. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So now we have 20. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we're going to do 25. I can tell you just by looking at them, we need 30 for this. Because if you look at this one here, now these beads are actually bigger than the ones we're using, and these do not fit. You have to really pull it over, and it just makes it. So let's do another 5 and we're good. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's 30 in total. So we'll test it. Okay. So I am going to go through this bead here. And actually, I don't like the way that looks because this I had coming out lengthwise and this is going on an angle. So we'll take this out. I wondered about this. We're going to go through this bead. Opening, you could, like we could have taken this thread and gone past this bead and then added, and it would give us this shape. But if you notice here, when you do it this way and through that bead, it will give you more space. So another little trick. Let's hope this goes through. Oh, I knew that. It's hooked on some other thread. Let's see. Let's just take this out and pull it. Not a big deal. So let's pull that out. So that's the other thing I find trying to go backwards with your thread often ends up doing this. And all it's done is you've crossed over a thread inside the bead. So just take your needle off, pull it out. You're ready to put your needle back on and start all over. Not a big deal. And you know what? I still do it today. I will try to go through and it never fails. You're always on some other thread. So there we go. Okay, so we're going to go through this bead here. Now, you can go all the way around and come back to the other side, which would make your thread pretty secure. You don't have to. You can go through your bicones. So let's take a look at what this is going to do. So hold it tight so that your beads are tight, because when you're finished, your beads are going to be tight. And take your, so make sure this is tight, like that. And make sure it fits. So that fits. Okay. Now you're going to go through that a few times. So let me see. I think I will go around. It's not going to hurt anything. Like that. And just watch you get this happening where it hooks. Did I go the wrong way here? Let me see here. Oh, did it go around? It went around the beads. Okay. You guys probably saw it. You did tell me. And just keep going around. In here. There. I'm going to double check it now that it's nice and secure. Because it looks small to me. So that, I don't think that's going to go, that's going to fit. I think I'm going to add 5 beads. So 35. These 11 O's are super tiny. I like them because they're tiny. You can fit them in a lot of places. But you know, for something like this, they're a little too tiny. So we've added 30 of these 11O rokais. I'm gonna add another 5 to that, and that should take care of it. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. For a total of 35, we're going to go through this bead, like that. And we're going to test it again because you never know. Stranger things have happened. So now it looks like super big. Here's another tip. When you get done, you can always cinch these together a bit if you need a bigger space. But you know what? It's better bigger than not enough. So I'm just gonna go through here. That. Go through the combined one. There. And go through the next one. I'm going to add a knot, but we're going to go through the seed beads again. Okay. Grab a thread bridge. 1, 2. I think this is one that we did a thread bridge on before. I can see some little stuff there. Okay. Go through those two. And go through all these beads. Go through as many as you can in one shot. There. There. And we'll go this way. Like that. And then we'll tie this off. You can go through a third time. This thread is incredibly strong, so not a big deal. So I'm going to go through the next 2 beads and then a knot. So let's go through this one and that one like that. And I'll do the same thing I did earlier. Pull it through. Catch your thread bridge here. There, I got one. Bring your thread from your needle around twice. Bring it down, put your finger, pull it through. And why is that? There we go. Pull it through. And then just go through a few beads, cut your thread. Let's see if we can get through that combined bead. It might be too tight because there's a lot of thread in there. Let me grab my pliers here. Pull that through tight and get in there as snug as you can without cutting any other threads, or use your thread zapper. So let's test this out. So like it's I find with this design, so I probably could have added just 2 seed beads at the end, so for 32 or 33, and it would make it a little snugger. But you know what, it's better to have this loose. These are hard to put on if you don't have a lot of space. Let's see what we can do with this one. So that makes it a lot easier. So this is super loose on me. This is for my sister. So her wrist is slightly bigger than mine. So there you go. So I hope this was helpful. I know it was a bit long. You know, I'm sure you just watched the one part and not worry about the ending piece. But since we didn't do the ending piece in the other, I thought I'd show it. So let me just point something out. So if you see here, that bead is kind of poked down in. Just grab some type of, you know, pointer or whatever, and or the bottom of a pen. Let me grab it here. So it's just the thread that's come down, and that might be due to the tension. So you just pop it back in. Let me get a thinner one here. And it might be just because you know, when you add a lot of tension here, the beads want to go in. But so just go through, and that is it. So there's this lovely bracelet. So I hope that was helpful. And again, if you have any questions, let me know. I am more than happy to go through things again. You know, when I'm doing a video, sometimes I get a bit very focused in on what I'm doing, so I don't anticipate that people would have an issue with something. So there you go. Take care, everybody. We'll see you in the next video. Bye.